TheSmartLocal.com.
Hi Fauzi.
Hi.
Can you tell me about that one time you faced sexual harassment?
Oof. So basically it was me around 11 or 12 years old, and it happened at a public swimming complex. So I already finished swimming, and then when I went to the changing room to get changed, right, I saw this man. He was basically standing in one of the cubicles, but his door was ajar. When I walked past, he came out, he pulled down his swimming trunks to show me his penis. So I was like, what the heck is happening? Boys always talk about like, you know what, when you're naked in the changing room, that's normal. So I like, okay lah, never mind. And I went to go and pee. And I was midstream, right? This man came beside me, and then he started like looking at me and started masturbating beside me at the urinal. And my youthful mind didn't think of it as a problem so much lor. And that's the scary part. The person didn't physically touch you doesn't make it any less a problem. Whether it has left a scarring impact on my life is a different story lah, but it's something I cannot forget. Yeah, it wasn't a very big penis lah.
I've been sexually harassed multiple times in my life, but the most shocking sexual harassment was in a club. I was walking with my boyfriend, hand in hand. Suddenly somebody just like freaking go and put their hand in between my legs, up my dress, and just like grab me, you know. Grab I also cannot see who it was, so I never found the culprit. There was no justice at all. That was the worst part. The same thing happened now. Good luck to you because my husband's gonna come, and then after that, bye-bye you in the cemetery. And my husband very fierce one there. Don't play.
When I was in secondary one, I worked as a flyer distributor. We will go floor by floor to put the flyers on people's door. We decided that we will start from the top floor and then work our way down through the stairs. So about like 4 stories down, suddenly at the staircase, there was this man. He was masturbating. He was staring right at me as I was coming down and like rubbing his school bird. I was like 14 and I didn't know what exactly he was doing. So my first instinct was to just run. Although he didn't like physically attack me, but I felt like I am mentally traumatized by it lah.
One of the times where I faced sexual harassment was in primary school. I had a makeup lesson with my Chinese teacher then. He was sort of a relief teacher, so I didn't know him well. So we kind of arranged to meet each other at like the staff room. After the thing ended, so I was due to go home, right? From the staff room, right, to the school entrance, there is a small stairwell. Like, as you're walking down the corridor to the steps, I suddenly felt his hand like caressing my butt lah. It was very sexual and like as a child, it was really shocking for me. Deep inside, you know that it's like kind of like wrong, but then I was too shocked to do anything, so I just pretended like nothing happened. But I only looked up at him. He just gave me this smile, like everything is okay smile, because this is quite traumatic. Like I kind of repressed it for a while. About 2 years ago, like I kind of recalled it and I was like, hey, this happened to me. It was quite serious, you know. When I went to therapy, it was like kind of shared and stuff. So that's the way I kind of got through it.
I faced sexual harassments about 3 times, and it's always at the same area, my butt. So the latest one happened 2 years ago when I was 24. What happened was I was in a popular bookstore and it was an hour and I was the only person. So suddenly I felt like a warm hand on my butt. Then I was like, then I turned behind. Only got this guy with a bag and his hand like out like that. So I say like, excuse me? Did you just touch my butt? He turned and he was like, what? That's not me. I don't know how to explain to you. Then I say, you wear your AC uniform, you can still go around doing this? You think I'm some young mei-mei, right? I'm not. I wanted to say, I'm old. I was damn proud of myself for like shouting. I think because it was the 3rd time it happened, so I knew what to do. So luckily some popular staff and like some kaypo auntie kind of like, 什么事? Then I say, 他动我屁股嘞! Yeah, it sounds funny, but at that time I was really shaking like a leaf. Then yeah, they called the police and then they took a statement, and then a few days later I went down for a statement, and yeah, that was what happened. I kind of had PTSD towards all the popular stores in Singapore. Like when I go in, I just think about the time I got molested. Yeah, and then I feel a bit conscious when I walk in alone. Yeah. Surprisingly, I thought I was totally fine after the incident, but I guess I'm not.
So I was studying late one day. I was going home from school lah. From the MRT to my house, right, there's this super long walkway. So I was walking down the walkway, right, and it was quite dark. I saw someone walking behind me, but I didn't really turn around and look at his face. I just kept a lookout for whether he was still with me. But when I reached my void deck, I turned around, right, and then he wasn't behind me anymore lah. When the lift arrived at the first floor and the lift door opened, that was when like I saw someone suddenly appear. He emerged from the shadows of the staircase area. I went in and I pressed my floor, and then he pressed 2 floors above me. I stand at this corner at the front of the lift, and then he moved to the back of me. As the lift was moving up, I heard a sound behind me. This constant fapping sound. That was when I looked at the reflective panel, and then I saw there was something in his hands. I thought it was his thumb at first, right? But who can make the kind of sound with his thumb? So he was like masturbating behind me while sniffing the back of my neck. So I just like froze. I didn't know what to do. And then when the lift door opened at my floor, I ran out. The next day, we made a police report. After a long while, then they updated me. They say that they cannot catch the culprit because no CCTV. So my mom was damn angry. She scolded the police. How can y'all not have CCTV? Do you know how dangerous it is for a young girl to go home alone at night? 1 month later, CCTVs were installed in my neighborhood at every corner. In the lift also have. So now it's very safe. Ever since then, I never saw that guy again.
There was this one day I was walking to work, right? I have to go down an escalator. Then there was this guy. He was also walking the same speed, but then he turned around and then he saw me. Immediately, he started walking very slowly. He got on the base of the escalator first. He like turned around to see whether I'm near. Then I wasn't. He didn't step onto the step. He just like chilled there. Then I'm thinking like I'm probably just gonna go behind him and say excuse me so I can go on the escalator. Then when I was near him, he turned around and then he swiped my breast, like the whole breast. He just swiped it, and it was in such an unnatural way because nobody's hand will be at chest level. Their hands will be here. And I was so shocked. I felt super violated, and I looked at him and I was super angry. I couldn't even say the words. I was just like, he was like, sorry. I was very emotional. Then I realized I can only just like continue walking to the office, and I probably would want to like hug someone. But at the same time, it sucked because I was scared to tell someone what happened because I was like wearing a tank top that day. Then for some reason, I thought that if I told someone that, their first reaction would just be like, oh, you deserve it, why you dress until like that. Yeah, which is very stupid.
There was this specific day where I was in the lift. This like really huge dude just came in. What happened was he turned around, pinned me to the wall. He put his hands on my junk. In my mind, I say I don't want because touch is sensitive, right? I was biologically aroused, and I guess he took it that it was consent. He exited at level 9, but that was like the longest level 9 I've ever experienced. I think of myself as quite headstrong and brave lah, I guess, you know, but at that moment in time, like, I just blacked out and I couldn't do anything because one thing, this guy was like almost twice my size and his whole weight was like on my chest, that kind of thing. I didn't tell anybody. I was too ashamed to go to like the police. When you listen to the news and everything, right, it happens to girls, but you don't really know and you don't really hear about if it happens to guys, then how. I was questioning like a lot of things, like was it my fault? Because biologically I reciprocated his touch. I've come to terms with whatever issues I have, but basically for the longest time, like a year or so, it sort of haunted me.
So the story I want to tell is about someone that I was very close to. It's a close friend of mine. At that time, we were at a stage where we were in a very grey area of our relationship, so you could consider it as friends with benefits. It was never ever to the point of sex. This incident happened when he sent me home. We ended up like fooling around in the back seat of the car. But I think when he started to undress me and things started to feel like it was leading more towards sex, that was when I started to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. I was pretty sure that I was very assertive. I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. But I think he didn't listen. And so what happened was that he ended up pinning me down in the back seat, and then like we had sex or rather he raped me because I didn't want to have sex. Eventually I kicked him I said no really, really loudly. I remember this, and that's when he realized that I really meant it. Like I didn't want to do this. And then he was like, oh, okay lor. Then he just got off me lah. I just really felt like I brought this upon myself lah. Like, if I didn't consent to this relationship in the first place, or rather like, if I just chose to leave the car before the fooling around happened, maybe this wouldn't have happened to me. And I just blamed myself lah. I didn't think it was sexual harassment or sexual assault. Much later, when I had a conversation with a colleague about sexual consent, I realized that this was actually a form of sexual assault lah. It's because I did say no, and they still think that I gave consent.
I feel that one common thing about people who experience like sexual assault or harassment, they somehow feel guilty about it. Even when it's something that they couldn't control, something that was done to them, you shouldn't be guilty lah. In the first place, it was never like your fault that you experienced this.
No matter where and no matter what happens to you, always tell someone. If you keep quiet, you let them carry on doing what they're doing. When you normalize this kind of behavior, that's the worst part.
It doesn't mean that just because I didn't get penetrated by someone that is not considered sexual harassment. If I'm being groped by someone, right, that is also constitutes as sexual harassment.
I think it's very easy to say like, I will definitely like have the guts to do this and confront him, but at that point of time, you are just so dumbfounded that you cannot react to it.
Hopefully, you have the courage to call the police. Actually, there's no harm in calling the police. You just report, and if the guy gets caught, it's good. You know, then you limit the chances of another person experiencing the same thing.
The only thing that made me shocked was my parents actually asked me, what were you wearing? So I kind of thought like, oh my god, is it because I dressed like that, that's why they touched me? But no, because I was wearing a baggy t-shirt and leggings, so like my butt was covered. Doesn't mean I wear a certain way means you can kind of touch me. It's like, even though my house gate is open, doesn't mean you can kind of rob, right?
I think what's most important is to help the person that experienced it move on from it and feel that they are empowered by this newfound so-called knowledge that they have lah. Even if they do feel like it is very difficult to overcome, just always be there for them.